Hello? Is this thing on? I think it's going. Can anybody see it yet? I think so. The red square says it's live. The people watching on YouTube are like, so unprofessional. Hello everyone, it's me, Dawn. And we're doing a Finding Your Light Devo again, which I am excited about. I see Rashay is watching. Okay, that means it's working. Woohoo! Hey Rashay, I'm praying for you, girl. I know you're great with child. I'm praying for you so much. Okay. Anyways, welcome to the Finding Your Light Devo. Super excited to be doing it again. I think this is the 6th time, which is awesome. And I've been really thankful for all the comments and everything that people have been writing and stuff. I go to check them out afterwards. It's so small on my phone, I can't really, it's hard for me to look at it during the Devo without getting completely distracted because I have the attention span of like a puppy dog. But to keep it all together, I just try to focus on our message. And so today's message we're going to be talking about is another heavy one. Last week we talked about sadness, and this week we're going to talk about loss. And they're kind of pretty close to each other. Sister subjects, if you would. But I think it's an important thing to talk about, just like sadness was. And I was really happy with how that turned out, and I think this will be good too. So anyhow, today's verse we're going to be discussing is from 2 Corinthians. This is actually what I consider to be one of, if not my life verse. And it means a lot to me, so big deal. So anyways, it's 2 Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. And it says, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." Now, this verse means so much to me, and it has been there for me in really dark times in my life, in times of loss. And I think I've only been alive for 35 years, which can be a lot compared to some people, and not so much compared to others. But in those 35 years, I've had the opportunity to experience a good bit of loss. And those really dark times in my life, have revealed, the difference between the dark times and the light times. And they've really taught me that life has seasons, or maybe even phases, we could call it. I can remember people talking about seasons when I was younger, like, oh, well, you're just in this season or whatever, and I didn't really get that. It seemed like a weird terminology, maybe because I grew up in Florida and we didn't have seasons. But now I live in Nashville, so I get it. But truly, I do think life has phases, and whatever it is you're doing now, or wherever it is you think you're heading, it may just be a season or a phase. And it may come to an end, and then you'll move to a new phase or a new season. And because life, for the most part, it kind of is long. It stretches out, even though sometimes it can feel like what we're facing right now is just all-encompassing. Truly, there are more days ahead. And I think it's the hope in the more days ahead that we can look towards when we're experiencing things like loss. So, speaking of loss, I'm sure everybody here has been through something where they have lost something, someone that was so important to them. Maybe it was a dream or a goal, or it could be a home. It could be maybe something that you just expected, or they're pretty big categories, but I don't think anybody here is a stranger to loss. I haven't met anyone who hasn't been disappointed at some point in their life. And when we're in these seasons of loss and dealing with suffering, it can really feel like life could just swallow us up. And we can even get to the point, I know I have been, where I just wished it would swallow me up, and that would just be it. And that I wouldn't have to go through it anymore, because it was just so painful. And so I can remember that there was a time in my life when I was just in a dark season. I was depressed and just feeling like a lot of darkness and a lot of brokenness in my life, and not being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I had this cool encounter out on the road that really sort of inspired me and opened my eyes a lot. So I want to talk about that today. There's this one time that we were out on the road, and I think it was winter, and it was kind of dreary, and it really mirrored my inner turmoil. at the time, but we had this time when we were out on the road we were just going to be stuck out there on the bus for like 5 days in the middle of nowhere, and for whatever reason, it worked out that I could take this opportunity to fly home and go visit my family, and I decided I wanted to go back and just try to recharge. So our hotel wasn't particularly close to the airport though, so I had to figure out a way to get there, and this was before Uber came around. So I just had to order a taxi. And now I'm like a professional Uberer, and nothing phases me. But back in the day, before Uber came around and there were just taxis were so terrifying to me. I don't know what it was, but like little old me climbing into a taxi all by myself, I don't know. I had so much anxiety and fear about it. I don't know if anybody was ever like that too. But I think I was just scared, like, I'm not gonna know who the driver is. What if it's somebody crazy, you know? Or what if I get there and they try to charge me like $200 and I'm like, hey, mister, I'm not gonna pay this. And he's like, oh yeah, well, you're like a little toothpick. I'll just snap you. So anyways, that's how I was. So I was kind of really nervous getting into this taxi, but I wanted to go to the airport and I wanted to go home to see my family, and I was going to be brave and just tough it out. So anyways, I call my taxi and the taxi shows up and I'm climbing in and I'm like, I can do this. And there's a young man driving the taxi, and I just remember as soon as I sat down and he said hello and he greeted me, suddenly it was like a weight was just lifted off my shoulders, because this guy, he was just so full of positive energy and love, and he had this beautiful golden brown skin and this incredible accent, and I was like, wow, he's really special and exotic. And so anyhow, we just started talking, and he really put my mind at ease, and just his whole aura, everything about him, he just was so welcoming and happy. And so I started talking to him. He asked me what I did. I explained that I was out on the road and I was going home, and he's like, wow, that's really cool, you know. And you know, I asked him, I said, you have such a cool accent, you know, where are you from? And he explained to me that he was from Africa, and then actually he had left a war-torn country where he had lost many of his family members in the conflict, and he had basically fled and come to the United States of America, and now he was working as a taxi driver, and he was so happy and so thankful for the opportunities that he had to be here in this country. And I was like, dang, I was like, man, I know people have been through a lot less that would never tell me what was going on with them, you know, but he just opened right up to me, and he told me, I mean, he'd had like many members of his family die, and he'd left his whole life and come to a country that he didn't know the language, and now here he was driving a taxi, and he was the happiest guy I'd ever met in my life. And it was wild to me and so crazy. And eventually we said goodbye, and I went to go wait for my flight, and I was people are making jokes on here and you're distracting me, Viv. So I'm sitting there waiting for my flight, and it just kind of hit me. I was like, wow, this guy. Because I can remember something that he said was, we were talking, he was just talking about how incredible America was, and how he was just kind of shocked sometimes to see that a lot of Americans, you know, they didn't seem to, he said, especially young people, they weren't very happy, and he couldn't understand why they weren't more happy, because we lived in this land of opportunity where you could be safe and take chances and, you know, do whatever you wanted to do, you know, and that it kind of seemed like they took it for granted. And I was like, man, I see what you're saying there, I really do. And then as I waited for my flight later, it hit me. I was like, this guy, he's been through more stuff than anybody I've ever met, and he is happier and more thankful and looking for opportunity and full of joy. And here he is. He's had to leave his home. He's had to learn a whole new language. He lost so many members of his family. Now he's come to the United States, and he, you know, has had to start over on the other side of the world from his roots. And he's driving a taxi and working long hours for little pay and doing a job that maybe even the majority of Americans like would not want to have that job. And he was so much happier than everybody I ever knew. And it really stood out to me. I was like, how has this happened here, you know? And it really made me think, wow, you know, how miserable do we tend to be here in the US with so many blessings? And that really impacted me, and it made me start to look at loss in kind of a different way, because it seemed, you know, that here in America, You know, we expect everything to go a certain way, and when it doesn't, I mean, even when we don't even get the right parking space, look out, you know. We get angry and we're upset and we take it out on other people, and when we experience loss, you know, and struggle, it feels like, you know, life's gotten out of bounds and we've been wronged, and this isn't right that this happened to us. It shouldn't have happened to us, and then we kind of like just seethe and float in that anger and sadness for, you know, sometimes it can for the rest of our lives. And we're so preoccupied by what's going on with us that we, you know, we just spend most of our time thinking about ourselves. And but it seemed like this guy, he was able to like take a step past his disappointment and into, you know, kind of making peace with what he had lost, and being willing to open up his hands again, you know, to receive what new joy that life could bring to him still to come. And I thought, gosh, you know, that's how I want to live my life, because my life has had a lot of ups and downs, and I've come to understand that the greater part of my life has been about suffering, and I could let that swallow me up. And there's been times where, you know, things were so dark I couldn't see anything else, but at the end point of it, I can see now how that loss and that suffering, it grew something inside me that was more strong and more powerful than anything I had before things kind of went wrong. And it made me start to think, you know, maybe there's something to this loss that we don't have to let it completely debilitate us, that we can move past it, and we can find the jewels, you know, like the diamond inside the coal after it went through the extreme pressure. And I think that because we have a life that has so much to offer to us, when we do look at all the beauty and the love that we're capable of, that the other people in our lives are capable of, the things that we can do for others, you know, because life has beauty and love, there's always going to be loss, because nothing lasts forever. Not our time here on earth, that's for sure. Only our souls will live forever. And because of that, we can know that loss is coming, you know. We're going to face it. You know, in this world we will have trouble. That's what Jesus said. But at the same time, I think that we can start to grow into the kind of people who can heal from our losses, and to find, obviously we have to take our time and to explore the pain and the struggles, because, you know, like we talked last week, that, you know, the sadness, it honors the beauty of what we had, you know, and that's something that is a wonderful thing that we need to do. But I think that we can reach past it, because just like none of the good things will last forever, the bad things aren't going to last forever either. And if we can start to approach life looking for the beauty and the good that's out there for us to experience, and that's out for us to give to others. And I think that's why this verse, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. And that seems to be the meaning of my life. For me to take the things that have not gone right and to make peace with them, to accept that life has loss in it, and at the same time, life doesn't just have loss, it has beauty and love, and it keeps having new things every day. And then once I've taken time and done the work of healing in myself, then I can be a comfort to those who are suffering right now as well. And there are probably a lot of you out there who are watching who are suffering right now, and we just want you to know that I know that there are those who have come through hard times as well. So all of us, we just want you to know that we understand how you're feeling, and you have every right to feel the way that you do, because you have suffered and you have lost. And at the same time, there is new beauty for you, new things coming around the bend as you continue to honor your loss and your suffering, and then open your hands up again to receive the new joy and the new love. And before you know it, the worst things that have happened to you, that have piled on you and weighed you down, you're going to become strong enough to lift them up and to cast them off, and then you're going to be able to help be strong enough to lift others up. And that is the secret to finding true joy and happiness in this life, because experiencing the love of God and then sharing it with others, there's nothing that's more fulfilling. You won't be able to buy that. You can't put it on. There won't be enough people who think you're cool to make you feel good enough to match it. So just being able to share that love, and that love starts with God. You know, He loves us through the things that we're facing and that we're struggling with in this fallen world, and then we can pass that love on to others. So you guys, thank you so much for listening in today as we talked about loss. And for all of you that are going through things right now, I'm praying for you, and I'm believing in you, and just get plugged in to places where you can have support and mentorship. And if you need to get some help with, extreme stuff that you're dealing with, get the counseling that you need. It's going to help you to grow strong so that you can stand up under the weight of what you're facing. Those of you who are facing, clinical depression, things like this, these are physical ailments that you need to see a doctor about, just like any other physical ailment. And there will be no one in your life who really understands, and you can't let the fact that other people don't understand what you're facing, especially when it comes to physical, mental illness and things where if your actual brain is having an imbalance or an illness, these are things that you need to see a doctor about, and the doctor can help you. Just the way if I had, a chemical imbalance in my blood that had to get fixed by medicine, I would need to get some help for that. And the same thing, don't hide in shame. It's kind of a travesty, the state of our country, as far as the ability of the system for people who are having mental health issues to be able to get the treatment that they need and the support that they need. So I just want you to know that I see you, and I don't think that you're some kind of freak. I think that you're suffering, and there's a lot of people who I talk to on a daily basis who are the same way. I got tons of friends who've dealt with mental illness. I've dealt with depression in the past, suicidal thoughts, all that kind of thing. You're not alone, and you know what? It's not the end. And there's still really wonderful things that life has to offer, and it just takes time and healing and finding the right path, and just getting strong. I was talking to a friend the other day, being brave is not never being weak. It's about feeling weak and keeping on fighting anyways, and that's what true bravery is. And so I believe in you, and God loves you, and God believes in you, and He knows everything, and He's got so much strength, and He wants to be there for us and give us the strength that we need to face whatever we're dealing with, even if it is super awful loss. And we've all been there. So, just be encouraged today, and love on someone today, and help someone have hope. Encourage somebody else today. And I'll see you next week for Finding Your Light. Take care.